We head to Nashvegas to talk all things betting as the Ally 400 is in the front of the ride. That was terrible. Brian and I are here to talk all that was last week's race, as well as get you set for this week's race. A day late, not a dollar short, hopefully. All of that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on grass.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, as I mentioned, about a day and a half late, about $1.50 in the positive.
I was going to say Richard.
Yeah. We had a wild USA Today 301, so we'll recap all that was that. Talk about how the bets went, talk about the DraftKings picks, what went right, what went wrong, how wild the beginning to middle to post rain delay swing was for our accounts, as well as head to Nashville and talk about some potential bets. The betting card is really gross. So we'll see if we can find some value. Talk about how you may or may not want to approach it and all that good stuff. But I guess let's start with the USA Today 301. What a wild swing, man. I know both of us were rain dancing, praying for cancellation, really, really hoping the NASCAR gods were on our side. Seems like whenever we want the race to stay green, whenever we want the race to go back, whenever we need stuff to keep happening, their NASCAR is like, oh no, we're going to cancel it 15 minutes ago. Okay. But the one time we're sitting on big number Tyler Reddick tickets, big numbers, in terms of outrights. I had a group with him and Chris Bell and two other drivers, I forget, and he was like 10-1, so I was going to cash that, and it was just like, this is going to be great. We're going to end the race. The rain looks terrible. Brian was leaving New Hampshire, driving through a monsoon and tornado warnings and all this stuff, and NASCAR's like, you know what? No, we'll stick it out. We'll make it work. And then we'll do slicks, and then we'll do wet tires, and then we'll do, it's like,
it was definitely the most like unsure I have been at a race that and since we've been paying attention, because at the track you could tell like the weather looked like it was going to hold off enough to what I had expected about halfway through. And even in the media center, everybody was talking like once we reached an official race at 151, everybody in the media center was like, okay, well, like when is this thing going to get stopped? And then if you're listening on the radio, you kept hearing teams. We got 25 minutes to rain. We got 20 minutes to rain. We got 15 minutes to rain. And Tyler Reddick's team, while he was in front, like they were the loudest on the radio. And let me just say, I let out the loudest like scream I have done in the media center while listening to this when Tyler Reddick's crew and probably him actually started yelling, "It's raining, it's raining." Because I was sitting there holding multiple Tyler Reddick tickets at large numbers, I was very happy. And also, too, I don't think anybody at the track outside of the extreme diehards that had nothing else to do that day expected this thing to get back going, because not only did I leave just because I was with my parents and we had like an hour drive, and no joke, I'm not kidding you people, the storm that missed the track, had that hit the track, there was no way this thing was getting back going, because a tornado actually wound up hitting down. You could not see out of your windshield. It was wild. But everybody and their brother was leaving. There was nobody left. Like all the parking lot was filed out. So I don't think anybody could have envisioned NASCAR sitting there for 2.5 hours waiting for this thing to get back going.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing is they did move up the race a little bit, and it was a much
half
earlier
hour.
race. I know typically these races are the ones that get canceled or the ones that are a little bit later. Maybe it's like the Coke 600 where, it's in the afternoon, and then by the time it's in the dark when they're finishing and it's just too late. So they were close. I thought for sure when they showed Tyler Reddick's little
his
pit
little
box
tent.
thing, and the water's just flowing down. And then they post a picture of Bob Pockrust, and he looks like he just got out of like SeaWorld with the tarp on, and he
Yep.
was soaking wet. And it's just like, of course, this is the race. NASCAR decides, no, we're gonna keep pushing. We're gonna keep pushing.
I mean, I think you got to give them credit though, because for all the talk that we've been saying, like, well, why the hell haven't they ran in the wet tires? Or at first they had called them rain tires when they first released them, and then they changed it to wet weather tires. And you know, I think this was a good test to see like what these tires could actually bring to the table, and it was really fun to see the drivers try to maneuver around the track. And at one point, I actually thought they were going to stop it from us getting back going when you had Kyle Busch wreck and then Corey LaJoie spin on the friggin' pace laps before we even whip back green. I thought you were going to hear over the radio, okay, forget this. Turn them off, shut it off, come bring them back. We're calling the race. But to their credit, they let it go. And look, losing the Reddick outright really hurt, but I was still able to cash a pretty large Josh Berry top 10, Reddick top 10, which I went very heavy on in the books or at DraftKings, which is the only legal book in New Hampshire, which was ridiculous. But yeah, like I don't know. I think it was fun. I think it was exciting. I'm actually kind of glad that they waited it out, because we got the whole race, and in the end, the race favorite, the guy who everybody kind of expected to do it, wound up winning. So, I think that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, and we'll talk about championship odds because those numbers have been flipped on their head. I
Yeah.
thought for sure what was going to happen was they were going to go racing again. Tyler Reddick was going to lose the lead, and then they were going to cancel the race. And I was like, someone else is going to win, but Reddick's going to get like 12th.
Oh, don't worry. That was at the forefront of my thinking, is that if they were to do that, I don't even know how I would have reacted. I would have been beyond angry had they got it back started, somebody jumped to the lead, and then they called it.
And of course, Ryan Blaney snake bitten again.
Oh, dude.
On one of the restarts, McDriver's like, no, I'm going to dive into this corner. And I was watching the Wormies went live with 80 to go once the race started.
Yeah.
And he called it like right before it even happened. He's like, watch, McDowell's going to dive into Blaney and he was going to spin him out and there's going to be an accident. And not 2 seconds later, with that exact thing happening, Blaney was out, and that guy running out of gas, getting knocked off. Like maybe he doesn't catch Christopher Bell. But
he definitely had something for. I think there was only 2 cars at the end that had they kept going, even had a shot to get Christopher Bell on like a restart, and it was Josh Berry and Ryan Blaney, in my opinion. Because
I don't think Larson had it.
No, he just wasn't there all day. Like he had short run speed, but he would fall off pretty hard on the long run.
That was my hope, is that on a restart he would get a good jump. And the problem was the outside was the king. And if you tried to go inside, it was just you were going to get stuck. And Reddick tried it. I forget, a couple other drivers tried it, and then obviously McDowell had to dive into Blaney. But you have to go way down and then way back up. And by the time you do that, you're 5th, 6th, 7th. So like everybody who was actually a contender was trying to get in that top lane. And guys that were on technically should have been like 8th or 9th on the restart were moving up to the front row because no one wanted the inside.
Yeah, and just to kind of get off of like the betting topic real quick, I just want to point out to people, like, this was my dad and my stepmom's, I think, second race they had ever attended. But like first they actually got to go as fans, where they weren't doing something with a local school. And if you want to get people to understand what NASCAR is and to actually appreciate what it is, bring them to a race, because I was getting texts from them saying, holy effing bleep, 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 bleep. These cars are loud, but it's really fun watching them. And then when we got home and the end of the race was on, they actually wanted to watch the end of the race because they were invested. And so bring people to tracks, bring them and immerse them into what NASCAR is. And even they were like picking my brain from like a bettor's perspective as to what was going to happen at the end. And to your point with the Michael McDowell, Ryan Blaney thing, I pointed out to them, I said, I guarantee you, number 34 right here, he's not lifting. Like he doesn't have a win. He needs a win. Something bad is going to happen on this restart. And if you're sitting there with tickets on Ryan Blaney, which I actually bet him live at one point, So, that's just the nature of the sport. That's just kind of what happens. But like I had said, in the end, the best car that we kind of expected took home the checkered flag. And as you said, championship futures, if you got in on it a couple weeks ago, you're very happy.
Yeah. So I will say going to the track is an incredible experience for new fans, and if you can get access to the pit area,
Oh, yeah.
that's even better. The drivers couldn't be nicer. The be able to walk around, just see the cars, it takes it to a whole new level. It really makes it a unique experience, as most sports arenas really like keep people as far away from the
Oh,
players as
yeah.
possible. The fact that you can just like go stand in the garage and take pictures with the drivers and do all that stuff, it's pretty insane. Speaking of pretty insane, Brian, before we get back to recapping the race and talking about all our bets, we did it. We got to 1,000 subs on YouTube. We cannot thank you all enough. We've been working really hard on this the past couple of years, grinding away, trying to get as much good content out to all of you. We appreciate all the likes, all the subscribes, all the comments, all the interactions, everybody who hopped in grid rivals with us. It's been a really, really fun season. Obviously, we still have a long way to go, but really, really appreciate everybody who's made this season a success for Brian and I, and we hope to keep it going. This is just the first step on the ladder. We're going to keep elevating, keep doing more. So if there's stuff you guys want to see from a content perspective, definitely let us know down in the comments. With that being said, Brian, let's review the betting card and let's talk some DraftKings, because even with Tyler Reddick not winning and us not cashing those 28s, 30s, 35s,
Well, how
whatever,
nice that would have been.
I think he was 40 at one point. I was really kicking myself for not jumping on that, because ultimately, as fun as it would have been to cash that ticket, he was really like a barely top 10 car most of the day. Like there was a
Yeah, like
lot of the day where he was kind of like just mid pack cruising around. And if not for strategy, and obviously this is a big strategy race, right? Like you make the right decision, you stay out when you should. A lot of races you can kind of manipulate the way where you finish. But in terms of like average running position and stuff, he was not anywhere near a winning car on Sunday.
Yeah, like, obviously the rain played a huge factor into him even finding his way up to the front. Like, I still felt comfortable with this top 10 play because because over the long run, I do think that the Toyotas definitely showed a little bit better than some of the other than some of the other like top tier teams in the other manufacturers. So, I felt like that was a good call. I will say I don't think anybody would have had anything for Martin Truex Jr. had he gotten out to the front and been able to stay up there and not get wrecked,
Yeah.
because I was watching the lap times during like that first segment, and he was a good 2 to 3 tenths faster than everybody else for the majority of the race, like early on. And so I think it would have been a Marty party, pretty easily had we not had him run into issues.
Yeah. So obviously Larson didn't win, Elliott, but Chase Briscoe, 28-1, top Ford, gets in
I
front
mean,
of Josh Berry by.
talk about hitting the jackpot.
Oh, it was great. It was great. Shouts to Chase Briscoe, repping the Bass Pro. He's now officially a JGR driver going into next season. Gonna rep Bass Pro. Very excited to see what he can do in that car, because I do think his upside is higher than I think we've realized. He's also probably a little lower downside than
Yeah.
JGR typically does, but I think just elevating, like he's very like, could he be Alex Bowman with another extra win or two? I could see that. So interesting to see how that all pans out. As you mentioned, Truex obviously didn't get there, but looked like a really good car, and I don't hate going to that bet. Larson over Blaney, cash it. Thank you, McDowell. Larson over Logano, cash it. Barry over Reddick. Thanks to you, Brian. I appreciate you. Nice little show bet win for me. Obviously Keselowski, Larson, Barry. Barry was there. I was happy I added that 30-1. Obviously the Reddick top 10 at basically even money was really nice. Brad K.
I was just
What
gonna
a
say, Brad K was the biggest disappointment, regardless of what Kyle Busch did. Like, I know Kyle Busch looked like dog crap, but we kind of
But we
anticipated
expected
that.
that. We went into
Yeah.
the week going, this is what he should do.
Yeah,
Brad K,
Brad
we went in
Keselowski, on
going,
the other hand,
he should win the race. He should contend. He's the guy that continuously
yeah,
finishes in the top 5, and he was non-existent the whole day.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
was
So that was a big disappointment, and it was interesting because early in the week I was very excited about Keselowski, but after we didn't really get practice or qualifying, I was a little skeptical of what we were going to see. So I avoided like adding any more action on him just because I they've been up and down. And we saw it the previous week too at Iowa when everybody expected Keselowski to be really, really good there, and he didn't really pop either. So
yeah. Yeah, so obviously didn't beat Byron, didn't get a top 10, didn't get top 5. That was frustrating. But Josh Berry beats Kyle Busch, Larson top Chevy, and Bubba, even though he finishes 34th, finishes one spot in front of Kyle Busch in our big bet of the week, cashes. So
let me just say on that matchup too, Kyle Busch had no business even being on the lead lap had it
no,
not been for those last couple of cautions before the rain delay. So
no, he was definitely one of the worst cars on the
yeah,
track, and Kim and Brad actually were competing for one of the worst days. So it's just wild.
yeah.
So overall, really strong week for me. Brian, you pre-qualifying ran into some landmines, but post-qualifying found some gold and were able to kind of balance out your day. So, Reddick did top 10, cashed that big time. I think you'd bet that twice. Yeah, no,
So I hit that too, like personally. I had a
you should have
significant
doubled
amount
down.
on that.
I was texting you. I was like, "It's even money now." Did you? And then you're like, "I already added it. It's fine."
Yeah.
Reddick over Chastain, cash it. Wallace over Bush. Barry top 10 was a nice call. Obviously could have done top 5 and even top 3 and
Yeah.
still cash those. And then under 9.5 drivers to lead a lap
I
was,
wish I would have gone heavier on that
yeah,
because even with like my thought of the race, and I said this all week, was that we were only going to get, maybe 200 laps in. And so the fact that they hung this number that had actually only been eclipsed once
yeah,
in the previous 3 races or 0 times at Nashville, it had only been eclipsed once of the 5 1.5s or something this year. Like there just wasn't of the comp tracks, there just wasn't data to say that this was going to go over the number. Or sorry, New Hampshire, that's what I meant. It happened like once over the last like 8
yeah.
trips to this track. So I probably should have went heavier. And unfortunately, because obviously I was in New Hampshire, I only had access to freaking DraftKings. So I didn't get a chance to actually get action on this because I probably would have been
Yeah.
pretty heavily invested in that spot.
Well, and the inside look at what kind of how our Saturday nights work, Brian and I are usually texting and working on the newsletter, which if you aren't subscribed to the newsletter, AOP podcast.substack.com, completely free newsletter, extra DraftKings thoughts, extra picks, full betting card, links to the episode, anything else you guys want to see in there, definitely let us know. We're happy to include. But Brian was texting me. He's like, I found my favorite bet of the week. And when I saw you only put 2 units on, I was like,
It's
are you
just
sure,
because
Brian?
it's like a prop. I don't know. I find it difficult to hit on the props. And remember, I had been burned a couple of times earlier this year
Yeah.
on the drivers to finish on a lead lap
Or
prop.
like the total cautions, like it was free money. It was looking
Yeah,
really good. And
exactly.
then all of a sudden they
Yeah.
just like start
So
piling up at the end.
obviously, I didn't live up to what I mentioned last night on the NASCAR betting preview show. Scared money doesn't make money, and I was a little bit scared there, so I didn't make as much as I wanted to.
Nope. But overall not too bad. We're still working our way out of the little downturn that kind of the all-star break section got, but felt good to have a productive week, even as going into the race with not as much information as we would like.
Yeah.
So that was nice to see lots of green show up, and obviously a wild ride of Is it rained out? Is it not rained out? Is it going back to green? What's going to happen now? All that good stuff. Speaking of wild rides, our DraftKings, we went from zero money before the the rain delay to making lots of money post rain delay to
Making
barely
no
making anything as the race ended. So I'm always like don't want to open up my DraftKings because you could
Yeah.
win like $500 on DraftKings and be like ecstatic. But if you had checked it an hour before or 20 minutes before or even 5 minutes before and it was $5,000, you'd be like so mad that you only won 500. So I'm like, I usually try and stay away. Like the rain delay was happening, so I'm like
Yeah.
checking lineups, and at that point I'm pot committed. So I'm refreshing it every so often and seeing how it goes, and I'm watching it go like this and all the different stuff. And then obviously we can kind of go through and figure out why that happened. So first, Ryan Blaney, obviously, looking like he might contend for a win to being 25th.
Hey, Joey
Logano,
Logano was good too. Before he got wrecked out,
yep,
Logano was good.
and then Brad K obviously stunk.
Yeah, he sucked.
Tyler Reddick, Cindric was like looking like he was actually going to be sort of decent for a minute, and then Austin Cindric. So that lineup obviously stunk. This lineup was better. Larson, obviously. Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott was kind of underwhelming too. Like I never really remember him like contending for the lead or being really strong or doing anything really, really impressive.
Yeah, he jumped out to a significant lead early, but he fell off pretty hard
Mhm.
towards the back end of stage 1, and then stage 2 happened, and he
Yeah.
was he was non-existent after that.
And then obviously more Keselowski, which stunk, but the Reddick call worked out. McDowell was great at when he was running in the front row, and then obviously crashed and ended up finishing 15th. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. pulled the top 10. So shouts to him, starting 13th. I was surprised to see almost 8% of the field being on him, given where he was starting. But
Yeah, that's
um,
seems high for me.
yeah. This was the one that ended up cashing. It had Chris Bell, which obviously was the guy you needed. 149 laps led, 43 fastest laps. Obviously got the win. Over 100 points on DraftKings. He really does do a lot for you. As you mentioned with Truex, there was points where he felt like he was doing really well. Wormy had talked about fading him in the
Oh
previous
yeah.
poll. So he was sweating out a lot of matchups against Truex, and of course he gets a top 10 finish. Gibbs was fine. He was not great. He was not awful. He was just there. The Josh Berry call, I'm again surprised at the decent ownership on him given where he was starting and his salary, but I really thought he could do something pretty strong and be competitive and obviously finishes third. Has a solid day on DraftKings. Justin Haley at one point looked really good. Obviously ended up finishing 29th, but there was multiple points in the race where a top 10 finish felt reasonable and
Yeah.
kept waiting for that. And then obviously Corey LaJoy, our randomizer pick of the week, which might have to be a continuous segment for when we're looking for that last driver. 5%, 22 points. I'm fine with that
Yeah,
at
I don't hate it at
5,400.
all.
5,400. If you tell me I get 22 points every week, I'm going to be ecstatic with that. And then I built this. Oh wait, no, that was this was my single entry. Yeah, my single entry I built. And then Larson, Logano, Elliott, Chase Briscoe. So I did Briscoe instead of Haley here, McDowell and Briscoe instead of Barry. We talked about him. I was a little cautious just because of how bad Iowa went, but yeah, he bounced back in a nice way on New Hampshire. So shouts to him. Obviously didn't cash, but that's okay. Any other New Hampshire stuff you want to talk about before we move on and talk about Nashville?
How could we forget? It sounds as if, according to Jordan Bianchi and Jeff Gluck and Bob Pockers and all these guys, Nashville. I keep talking about Nashville. New Hampshire is moving into the playoffs next year. So it still seems unclear as to whether or not they're getting a second date or they're transitioning this summer race into the fall and maybe moving out Homestead into this time period. I don't know,
Or
but
maybe
yeah,
Iowa gets this race, and then they move New Hampshire into the playoff.
yeah,
That's how you get Iowa on the schedule. Maybe because Richmond too, is that a playoff race?
I think it is this year, yeah, because I
So
think
maybe,
I think they're getting rid of that. So Richmond's only
yes,
going to
maybe New Hampshire becomes a Richmond 2 in the playoff, and then Iowa becomes New Hampshire, and then so we Richmond once, Iowa once, and then New Hampshire once, which I think makes a lot of sense. They have enough correlation where we can kind of get some ideas without going too crazy. So
just as long as they don't take away the two races at Las Vegas, regardless of the racing, just because it's so easy for me to get there.
it's our selfish request for sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
But yeah, no, I like the sound of that a lot. Okay. Let's talk Nashville because the betting board is disgusting. Kyle Larson is your favorite 4.5. Denny Hamlin 5.5. Truex at 7. Chastain at 8. Chase Elliott at 8. Christopher Bell at 8.5. Ryan Blaney at 9. Inside 10 to 1's disgusting. Ross Chastain is the name that jumps out among performances here. Has a first, a fifth, and a second. Finish has been incredible. Led 99 laps last year, was a dominant track, but I have yet to pull the trigger even as long as 10 to 1 over at Superbook. I keep telling myself maybe there's something there. Maybe this is the week he figures it out. But it's just they even talked about it on the NASCAR betting preview show how different Trackhouse was going into
Yep.
this race last year and how much more speed they had shown kind of in general before they went into this. But and now we're looking at Ross Chastain, who was 11th at his total speed at Vegas, eighth at Texas, 16th at Dover, 6th at Kansas, and 8th at Charlotte. So, like, he's been fine, but he's a lot closer to a top 10 car than he is to a race winner. And when you're 8 to 1, 8.5 to 1, even 10 to 1 to win the race, it's hard to get to some of those ancillary markets just given what that, the math kind of dictates that those be priced at. So, is there anything at the top of the board that you're even like considering?
Not really at this point of the week. I mean, I think the only guy that you have to at least consider has got to be Christopher Bell with what he's looked like over the last month, albeit, he doesn't have good success here in Nashville, but this guy is clearly just on another level at the moment. And so I definitely think he's somebody to keep an eye on. And, we'll talk about him in another market here in a bit, but yeah, like I think Bell is probably the most intriguing guy of this list. I have zero interest in hitting Larson at 4.5, or even Denny at 5.5 because I can't really see either of them getting that much shorter to a level that I wouldn't be interested in adding them if they are starting on the pole.
Yep.
And to Chastain, like Chastain has done nothing so far in 2024 to warrant him opening as a race favorite or near the race favorites at any track, regardless of track history. He's got to show me something on Friday and Saturday that like he's got race winning speed for me to even consider betting him at under double digits.
Yeah, looking at Ryan basically the best way to comp this week's race is basically the high speed 1.5s, which is Vegas, Texas, Kansas, and Charlotte, and then throwing in some Dover in there. Denny is number 1 in terms of total speed, was 7th at Vegas, but then 2nd at Texas, 1st at Dover, 1st at Kansas, 6th at Charlotte. Denny's somebody that,
Yeah.
if I'm getting involved, makes an interesting case. Maybe he's a better, like, grab him top 5, top 10, top Toyota, something like that right now. And then if he's a rocket ship and he's 4.5 to 1 on race day, then just take that and don't worry about it. But then if he kind of struggles a little bit, maybe you get a better number in the outright market. Larson is 2nd. And then Truex is tied for third with Tyler Reddick. So that's kind of interesting as we kind of dive into the next range. 10 to 1 or longer. So Reddick is 10 to 1. Byron is 12. And then you get into like Logano at 18, Keselowski at 20, Ty Gibbs at 20, Chris Buescher at 22. And then it's another massive jump. Is there anything in this kind of like 10 to 20 range that you're potentially interested in?
Look, I'm riding with it until it actually happens, and I'm going to lose all the money because of it. But I'm going to add Tyler Reddick until the dude finds victory lane because he's shown plenty of speed at the comp tracks. I mean, he qualified, I believe, on the front row or the first two rows here last year, and he was plenty fast during the race. He didn't get the win, obviously, but he's looked good. He was decent at Dover. He was decent in He was good at Las Vegas. He's been good at the 1.5s. Yeah, I like Reddick pre-flop just because he's probably going to qualify pretty well. He's going to look pretty good in practice, which he's done all season. So I think he's probably a number that'll be shorter. And then the other one, it's gross again. Like, obviously, it's hard to bet this knowing that the likelihood is probably going to be less after practice and qualifying. But Joey Logano opening at 20 to 1 at a track that is a little bit longer when he's been showing tremendous speed when unloading, I think presents another valuable opportunity to get in on a number that's going to be much shorter post practice and qualifying to where then you can fade him in matchups or, manufacture, you hedge off of that with, say, a Ryan Blaney or a Buescher or a Keselowski, if you like him, in the top Ford market to kind of get off of Logano a little bit. But I think he's going to look good during practice and qualifying because, I mean, he always does. And when you look at it, he has the top average starting position among the active Cup Series drivers at Nashville. So if he does that again, like, this number is cut in half and you're sitting pretty on, 10 to 1 value.
Yeah, no, I don't hate that at all. Obviously, when I think about, okay, who would we be typically betting at a Vegas, at a Texas, at a 1.5 miles? Who kind of comes to mind? And I think Logano makes some sense. He's hard for me to get to. I don't know, even as much as like I've considered him and even bet him, like, does he have that race winning speed right now, or is he more in that?
Well, that's the thing though, is like I think Logano is a guy where you want to get paid on him. And so you want to bet him early because he's going to qualify well. So if you like him to do anything this week, you have to bet his numbers pre-practice and qualifying because he's probably going to be fast in qualifying.
I think I need to see a 3 next to his name before I could bet him. And like he was good at Vegas, fast at Vegas and Texas, but then really fell off at Dover, even worse at Kansas, and then back a little bit at Charlotte. But he's 21st, 30th, and 24th over those 3 races in terms of average speed. I
Yeah, but you also have to consider that Ford really wasn't good.
No.
For most, if not all of those, high speed intermediates. They just hit on something like a month ago. So the last 3 or 4 races.
So my question is, did they hit on something that will be transferable to the 1.5 miles this week? Or did they hit on something that works with short tracks and that it worked in that package specifically? And now that we're or even like if you want to throw in like the Sonoma race, but like now that we're going to a 1.5 miles again and more traditional race, does that kind of speed we've seen kind of go away as Hendrick gets faster, as JGR gets faster, as kind of in general? So the name that I'm compelled to, and I'm gonna add, I don't really want to add a ton of stuff because I don't love the market right now, but I'm adding Tyrone Gibbs at 20.
I can't get there with the outright. Don't worry.
I get it.
I have another Gibbs play that I like, but
I get it, but I also know that when he was very much in that Xander Schauffele bucket where he was priced as a winner before he won. And so we would be talking about him between 12 and 14 and being like, why is he here? Like, what are we doing? But now that he's 20, especially given like the names that he's sitting around, and kind of where everyone else is priced this week, like, to me, he's price closer to he would be like in most weeks 25 or 30, but because they're shrinking everything for some reason because they don't want to get burned, I guess.
Yeah.
20-1 feels pretty good. So I'm going to add a little bit of Ty Gibbs because, like your thought with Logano, I think he can qualify really well. We've seen him do well on mile and a halfs in general. He's 5th in terms of average speed rankings, 5th at Vegas, 5th at Texas. Fell off a little bit for 11th at Dover and 10th at Kansas, but got 3rd in terms of speed rankings at Charlotte. So found something. I trust the Toyotas here. And I think just the car he's in is solid. So I think he goes out. I think he performs well. I think he starts somewhere in that kind of top 7 or 8 cars, and that number is 12 or 10 or 8 on race day. So I will take the 20 and add it again at 22 when he doesn't qualify as well as I think.
Yeah, I don't hate that, just because if you did tune into the NASCAR Breaking Preview show, Greg Mathern from wintherace.info, he mentioned laddering Ty Gibbs this week, going with top 10, top 5, and top 3 numbers, which I really liked listening to, just because like I was on Gibbs top 10 early in the week. And then obviously I pointed out during the show, I was dying inside because I wasn't in Vegas to get the top 3 number that Greg was able to hammer. But yeah, Gibbs is another guy. He's like a Tyler Reddick or a Logano to me, where they pop during Friday and Saturday sessions, when we do have Friday and Saturday sessions during practice and qualifying, which makes their odds shorten most times, that we go to the track. So he's a guy that you want to hit on pre-flop for me because of the speed that they show prior to the race going green on Sunday. And then you can come back and you can hit it again if you actually think he's got a chance to win. But you want to get the best number on a guy. And right now, that for Gibbs, for instance, that's going to be now, because unless he wrecks or something during qualifying, like he's going to start inside the top 10. The car has been too fast this year for that not to happen.
And speaking of getting the best of the number, our friends over at DraftKings hung a 25, so I'm adding that. That's a compelling number. And
yeah, I don't hate that at all.
7-1 to top 3 plus 225 to top 5. Like those are both interesting if you want to follow Greg's strategy. Greg's really smart. It's really cool to see the mix of like analytics people, vibes people, kind of a combination people, and some of us end up on the same options using different paths. So
I was gonna say, when knuckleheads like us are on the same numbers that people that look into the data are, it's that like sometimes the eyes match what the data says. That's
yep. So 25 is really, really compelling. So I'm adding that. Just seeing over here before we move along if there's anything. There's an 11 on Reddick if you want that, Brian.
Yeah, that's the number that I'm adding. And then
cool.
There's
so let's go to the next range, because if you want to take advantage of the market and potentially land a value, if we want to play this as like an options trader where you want to get in on the best of the number and then figure out a way to fade it if he looks like he's crap, and then take advantage of it. If not, we could talk about Kyle Busch at 40-1, Alex Bowman at 50, Josh Berry at 50, Bubba Wallace at 50, and then we get into like jabroni markets as we get north of 60. So talk to me about the name you're adding right now.
Kyle Busch. He's 50-1 at FanDuel. It's absolutely disgusting. But if there is any hope for a return to relevance for the 8 team, I think it might be this weekend, especially if you think that Dover translates to Nashville. Kyle Busch qualified on the pole there. Kyle Busch ran inside the top 5 there. Kyle Busch had speed there, and then the following week at Kansas as well, add another high-speed intermediate. So if there's any hope for this team to get their season back going, it's got to be this weekend, in my opinion. And maybe there was some issues between him and Andrew Petrie, who was like forced into retirement. Yeah. So,
issues between Kyle Busch and somebody, I do not believe that one
right?
bit.
because
Nobody can
it's
see
been
that.
so bad, you cannot. I don't think you can play like the auxiliary markets, like top 5. I just don't trust that.
Yeah.
I want to get paid on him, and so
Yeah.
50-1 that you can get at FanDuel right now is the perfect opener for me.
Yeah, I mentioned it in the chat last night at our on the pod, but if you like a KFB, if you like one of these longer shots, taking them in the outright market is
Yep.
absolutely the move. I'm not betting any of their top 5, top 10 markets,
Yeah.
especially with
No.
someone like Kyle Busch, where one thing goes wrong and he has a meltdown, a little temper tantrum in his car, and he wants to go park it in the garage because his left wheel came off, or because whatever. Like he is not a happy camper. RCR, I feel like is a good fade candidate, and honestly, like even if you love Kyle Busch, if you want to jump in on some of the markets where you can get good prices on matchups, I don't hate doing that right now, even if
Yeah.
you are betting the outright. Because RCR feels like they're a house of cards, and like one little thing could go wrong. Like Austin Dillon is apparently kind of like Ryan Priesting his way through the thing and like hanging out in Florida when he should be working on putting down better laps. And like this is a place where, in theory, you'd like Austin Dillon, but like, can we
Yeah.
really like Austin Dillon? Um, so I'm not gonna add it. I think 50-1 is a phenomenal number, and totally understand why you would get there.
Well, and
Um,
then also too, like when you look at when you look at the 3 races here at Nashville, Busch has led laps in all 3 of those races. So whether it's been pit cycling or whatever it may be, Busch has found himself up front. And at 50-1, like I'm gonna take a shot at that on a guy who is a Hall of Fame driver. The car has shown speed. I mean, obviously not less times than you want to see for somebody that could potentially win a race. But I mean, this is also a guy who was the championship favorite at one point last year after winning 2 races early on in the season. So it's not like the talent has just completely gone away for Kyle Busch. And if he shows any speed on practice and qualifying, and say a caution comes out at the right time during the race and he's in the lead, like who's who's going to get by a guy who is in such desperate need of a win when he is probably the most willing guy to door somebody and send them into the wall for a race win?
yeah, yeah. No, I totally get it. Let's talk about the next name that you're gonna add, because I think it's the one I'm adding to. Are you adding the sponsor of the
Yeah, yeah.
race, Mr.
Of
Alex
course, it's
Bowman?
the Ally 400, and freaking Alex Bowman is driving the Ally car that
Yeah,
was designed by freaking Dale Earnhardt Jr. How do you not bet this guy
yeah.
this week?
At 50-1, I'm in. I'm in
Yeah,
on 50-1. Uh,
exactly.
and honestly, at mile and a half, Bowman has been pretty fast. He wasn't great at Vegas. He was kind of average. He was 11th at Texas, but then he was 7th at Dover, which is one of the better comps. And then he
Yep.
was 3rd at the last time we ran in a fast mile and a half at Charlotte. Um, so he's closer to that. He's closer to Chastain, Elliott, Byron than he is to Keselowski, McDowell, Logano, Briscoe, whoever you want to throw in there. So 50-1 feels like an egregious price for somebody, but he's also the fourth Hendrick guy. So like I get why books are putting him, but as you can see, if you flip over to DraftKings, he's way down here at 35, which I'm
Yeah.
not betting 35. I need our favorite offshore has a 40, and I'm wondering if that's where I'm willing to get in, or if I need a 50 to dive in.
Well, I got in at the 50 price on our offshore, so
Wow. You're more quick to the trigger than I
yeah.
am. So
Okay, so just on Bowman, kind of like what we talked about with a guy like Joey Logano, for instance, who, does he really have a shot at winning the race? I don't know. He probably needs the cards to fall right. But that being said, like he's shown plenty of speed before during qualifying that if he qualifies inside the top 10 and he shows decent practice numbers, this number is cut almost in half, 25, 30-1, and you're sitting on 20-1 value on an outright that, which you'd probably still be happy to grab 30, but I want 50 over 30.
yeah, yeah. Like if we see that he's fast and he qualifies anywhere near the top 10, it's probably like 22, 25. So
That's what I was saying.
grabbing,
It's probably like 25 or 30. I would assume so because
yeah.
you
So
have to come into this week assuming guys like Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, the other JGR guys like Martin Truex Jr. and Christopher Bell, for instance, and even Ty Gibbs, they're probably going to be amongst the fastest cars, and those guys are going to make up 4/5 of the top 10 cars, and so they're going to shorten the numbers, or they're going to elongate the numbers for a lot of the mid-tier guys. But these guys with these super long odds like Bowman, I don't see them getting any longer.
Yeah. So Bowman is like, I'm not betting at 35.
No,
At 40, I'm interested, but
I think
50
it's
is
still
where.
okay at 40.
Yeah. I need at least to see a 4. But that's the way to play it. Anything else? Anybody is in terms of like longer than Bowman? As we get into kind of the next range of just like complete, firing darts. Is there anyone that maybe you're not adding them, but you're considering adding them? Might be a value before practice and qualifying.
Look, I don't know how many times we've talked about this year, but Michael McDowell, he's got a couple pulls this year. If he does it again, you're sitting on a very long number. But again, he's a guy. It's basically like throwing your money away.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like he's a better like bet for clout. Like you bet him, you show it off on Twitter. Hey, look, I
Yeah,
got this guy who just qualified on the poll at this number.
exactly.
His number's now this, knowing he's not going to win. Like
Yeah.
as fun as it would be, the odds of him winning feels very,
Oh,
very low,
slim to none.
and that's why he's priced accordingly. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I'd rather double up my bet, and bet Bowman, or triple up my bet and bet, Byron or Blaney or something. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into the. I love that they called this the speakeasy of Caesars. It made me laugh. It's like if you know the password, you can get in and get access to all the different stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk manufacturer, because I think there's always opportunity there. Top Chevy, obviously Larson, big favorite, but then it's Chastain, Elliott, Byron. Bowman at 18 is kind of interesting, but if he is the top Chevy, he's probably contending for a race win.
Yeah. That's it. I think it's the same for Kyle Busch.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to supplement your bet, and then instead of betting maybe like a top 3, what's their top 3 price? Yeah, Bush is 11, Bowman's 14.
Yeah. See, I'd probably rather hit their top 3 market just because it opens up the opportunity that a
That's
Kyle Larson
true.
could win the race.
That's true, especially with a Bowman. Like, it's not that much
Yeah.
shorter, and he could finish second or third behind his teammate. So, but something to, if you want to supplement, I get going there. But yeah, it's probably not a no go. Ford feels like an open market though. Like,
Yeah.
Blaney
Ford is
obviously a big favorite, but beyond Blaney, like I don't love anyone. Keselowski at 5 is sort of interesting. Buescher at 6 is sort of interesting. McDowell's down here at 25. Like, I feel like Ford could finish like 6th or 7th and be the top Ford, kind of like what we've seen the past couple weeks with a few different manufacturers. Is there anyone in here that you particularly you think could make sense, or you want to shout out?
Well, Buescher was somebody that I was kind of watching early in the week, and I actually bet him on our offshore at 33-1 outright, a little sprinkle. Just because if you tuned into Wormy's pre-race poll, not this, I think it was prior to Iowa, he talked about how Buescher has kind of earned the right to not open with such long numbers.
Yeah.
Just because when this car is fast, like they're really fast, they're top 5
Yeah.
speed. So,
And when you're betting something like top Ford or
yeah,
something, you want to get paid out. So like Buescher has kind of been inconsistent in terms of his total speed, but at Vegas he was 3rd, and at Kansas he was 4th. So when he pops in a big way.
exactly.
And he's also shown the ability, much like his teammate, to, when he gets track position, to keep it and not like give it right back. So
I was just going to say, Ryan over at wintherace.info, he talks about the RFK guys as like, they are the luckiest team in the sport in terms of finding the cautions when they need it, finding the track position when they probably shouldn't have it. And so
yep.
I think Buescher is probably a good pivot. I know he sucked here at Nashville, but guys take strides at certain tracks where they're not good. So I still like Buescher this week. I don't know if I'll get there at 6-1, but
Yeah, but I don't, especially if you like him outright. I think 6-1
yeah.
is a fine addition to the card. Top Toyota Hamlin plus 210, Truex plus 325, Chris Bell plus 325, Reddick 425, Ty Gibbs 10-1 is going on the card. I'm betting him outright at 20. A 10-1 feels like feels aggressively priced for a guy that's 20-1 to win the race.
Yeah, but I think it just shows the strength of this camp.
Yeah. And maybe I should look at what's his. Let me see. What's his top 3, top 5 price? Because
I think his current top 3 top best number is 7-1.
Yeah, I think I like 10 better.
Yeah, but again, if you bet the top 3 number, I mean, I think just how good JGR has been, there's definitely a world where Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex finish first and second.
Yeah. All right.
And then you got the hottest driver in the sport right now, Christopher Bell, in that stable as well.
Where's this one? Let me see. Go to top 3. Let me see what the best number I can get on Gibbs. Yeah, is the 7-1. So I'll add 7. I like 10 better, but
well, who wouldn't? It's
the
$3 extra.
Right, but the wiggle room you get, because as you mentioned, he could get second, be an awesome driver all day, and then you're like, but he loses to Denny or loses to Truex or loses to Chris Bell, and you're kicking yourself. All right, any finishing markets you want to look at? Oh, we should see if do they
I was
have
just gonna say, the top 10 market again is the books have destroyed top 10 markets. That being said, my favorite top 10 play right now, and piggybacking off of everything Kyle and I have already discussed about Ty Gibbs on the outright market, you can still get Ty Gibbs top 10 at Bet365 at even money. And knowing how fast he's been in qualifying and showing plenty of practice speed as well, I don't think that number is going to be there. It'll probably be minus 150, or he'll jump into that 1 to 2 range if he does show that same speed. So I'm adding the even money top 10 on Gibbs. I'm not as optimistic for the race win, and I've been a Gibbs fader the last couple of weeks, so I can't just go completely opposite and be a full-fledged he gets us fan. But the top 10 number for me is still too good.
At what point are you out on the top 10? Because I'm looking, there's some minus 115, minus 120, 125.
It's just so hard getting there because, okay, even a Kyle Larson at minus 420. Why don't we get a no price on that? If he's so heavily favored to finish in the top 10, give me a no at 3-1. I'll bet that over the minus 420.
Yeah, the books want their candy and eat it too. I get it.
This is the Cup Series where guys wreck. If you were to tell me, okay, for instance, Michael McDowell and Ryan Blaney coming to the end of that race with what do we have, 15 laps to go or whatever? Did you think that they weren't going to finish inside top 10? Obviously there was a chance that they wrecked, but that's what I mean. Anything can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, what was it? When we were in Vegas, there was a no price at Circa.
It was either Caesars or BetMGM used to do that.
One of them did it, and I jumped on it, and I bet against Blaney and against Logano the top 10.
That was MGM.
Yeah, MGM. So that they have done it before, but
yeah,
it's not they don't care enough about NASCAR, don't get enough money to make it worth their time, so they're not going to do it. They're going to give us a fraction of the offerings, and they're going to make us appreciate whatever little crap we can get.
Yeah, and okay, Kyle Busch, even money to top 10. What has he done that's that you want to bank on him top 10ing it. Like, you have to place a significant wager to make anything on that. And are you willing to put down that type of money on a guy who's finished outside like the top 25, 4 of the last 5 races, or whatever the hell it is? Like, the dude is in full on, I don't give an F mode, grumpy old man, get off my lawn. Like, as soon as somebody touches him, he's in full-fledged rage mode.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question for you because I'm trying to figure out if there is potential. Let me see if there's the schedule, and then we'll look at some matchups.
Ooh, we got qualifying? I didn't even see that.
Yeah, qualifying matches. But so the name that I'm wondering about is Brad Keselowski. So I talked about Logano and how you're kind of interested in him, but I'm less optimistic given his kind of like he was good, like fast at Phoenix, fast at Texas, and then kind of fell off. Brad Keselowski's the other way. Brad Keselowski was terrible at Vegas, terrible at Texas, even worse at Dover, but then was a top 8 car at Kansas and a top 5 car at Charlotte. Do we expect them that they found something, as we mentioned with the Fords in general, or is he someone that could make sense as a potential? Like I've gone back and forth with the RFK guys. Like I don't know to fade them.
Yeah.
I don't know to take them. Like do we just take them as like bigger, top Ford, top whatever, and then fade them in matchups? Like where's your head at with kind of them in general?
So the way I'm looking at like the RFK team is that they haven't really practiced nor qualified great, regardless of what they looked like on Sunday. So I don't think they're a garage to bet pre cars hitting the track. And on that note, if you look at Caesars, there's a matchup Joey Logano over Brad Keselowski. I'm actually going to add that because of the major difference that those two have during the practice and qualifying session. I think there's a good shot that floats out to minus 150, minus 160 when Logano's qualified inside the top 5 and Keselowski's starting mid-teens or even low 20s. Now, getting to Sunday, though, like if you look at practice times and you see limited fall off for a guy like Keselowski, like I'd be all in just because on the concrete track that you're probably going to have multiple grooves. It's going to be a feel race. Keselowski's a good racer in that sense, but he doesn't have good history here. He's been up and down. So I'm a little worried that he could be like fool's gold once again.
Yeah. Reddick over Elliott. You interested there?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was just hitting the research books on that because I think there's some value there.
What about Bowman over Bubba? We both like Bowman. We think he could be interesting this week. It's basically minus 115 on both sides. Yeah, Bowman's hard to get to before practice and qualifying in terms of like those kind of like markets, just because like we expect him to be solid and maybe we get a better price on the outright market, but Bubba's just gotten better, faster each week. Typically a guy that we like at mile and a half. I don't know. I'm probably going to avoid that. I was really tempted, but no. Okay, Brad K. Oh, that's qualifying. Oof. Say plus 150 is kind of interesting.
I wouldn't touch that though. That again, like I think there's a shot that Kyle Busch still like throttles Keselowski.
Logano plus 110 against Larson if you're betting on the
No way.
Busher or Reddick.
I think Larson is probably going to grab the pole.
Kinky. Bell versus Larson, Stain versus Larson, Elliott versus Larson.
So there's one other matchup that I have already. It's from DK.
Okay. Let's go.
You're probably going to want to add it as soon as you see it.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can guess it. Is it Truex over Chastain?
Yeah, that number should not be minus 115.
No.
Look, Truex has had some terrible luck, but his car has been fast.
And
Throw
Ross
the luck
Chastain has
factor
a
out
really
the window, and Truex crushes Chastain.
yeah. Josh. Ooh, do I take my boy Briscoe over Josh Berry? I don't know if I want to bet either of them.
And look,
Busher.
I don't hate. Obviously, you don't want to bet against the guy who's the hottest in the sport, but anytime you can get plus money on a guy like William Byron, who, yeah, he's kind of struggled of late, but that team has a way about finding good finishes.
Yeah, it's just hard to fade anyone in the GGR, especially Christopher Bell, as hot
Yeah.
as he's been. Anything over here on Superbook that's extremely compelling? Truex over Blaney, Reddick over Blaney.
Ooh, you get Logano plus money over Keselowski. Oh shit.
There you go.
That is, man, that better be there. When I get to Vegas on Friday morning, man, I am going to hammer the shit out of that.
Mm,
Please be there.
I'm
Please be
adding
there.
both of these.
Oh, Gibbs over Kez. I actually like that. I actually like him over Logano a little bit too. Oh yeah, I'm gonna add the Gibbs one too. Sorry, Brad.
I will let you know that our favorite offshore has Gibbs as an underdog to Logano. So do it that way you will.
I'm headed there now, my friend.
Superbook.
And this is why we do it. This is why we shop the lines, folks, because like you never know.
Minus 120. Minus 130.
And you know, I guess in a sense, that's the benefit of having lived in a state that's not legal, because we've been able to get access to Bovada while also, when we're in the legal states, still access it and be able to bet on the actual books.
Yeah, but it also makes it a price shopping nightmare and or dealing with the less of, because he's either nothing or a garbage number. So
Yeah, true.
truly is a double-edged sword. All right, anything else you want to look at before we talk champion, as we've gone over an hour, so hopefully everybody
Yeah,
who's made
hopefully you're still with us.
appreciate everyone who's still hanging around. We'll give you the full betting, our full pre-flop betting card here in a second. Anything else before I recap the card and then we move to championship futures?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Okay. So right now I have 6 bets. I have Gibbs at 25. I have Bowman at 50. Those are my only two outrights. I have Gibbs to top 3 at 7-1. Took that instead of top Toyota, which 10-1 is much more compelling. But we talked about with Truex, with Bell, with Hamlin, he could finish second or third, and then it's not cashing if one of those other guys wins. So I took the 7. I took Truex over Chastain at minus 115. I took Gibbs over Logano at minus 120. And then Gibbs over Keselowski at minus 130. Brian has 3 outrights. He has Reddick at 11 because he's a glutton for punishment. KFB at 50 because he's really a glutton for punishment. And then Alex Bowman, he has the Ty Gibbs number at even money. I should probably add that too.
Great. He is not going to get us.
Yeah, no, Ty Gibbs is definitely finishing 11th behind Logano and Keselowski, so get ready for that. Truex over Chastain, Logano over Kez, and Gibbs over Kez. So Brad's getting faded big time. And then we come back and hit the top Ford market as Keselowski, and that's how we balance the books if Brad kicks ass and we don't get smoked. So that is this week's race. Let's talk championship futures before we get out of here. Because as I mentioned, that market has been flipped on its head. Your current favorite to win. Oh, that's wait. I'm clicking, right? You can see that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Kyle's computer is broken. I think because you have to hit future. Yeah.
But that's okay.
Championship winner down at the bottom.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Don't worry,
Christopher
folks.
Bell.
Sometimes my battle with technology rubs off on
Yeah,
Kyle.
it transports through the network into my computer and into my mouse. Christopher Bell is your favorite at 4-1. Brian and I added some. I think I got 8 or 7. Brian got a decent number 2. We told you a couple times to jump on it if you wanted some action, and I didn't think he would flip Larson or be tied with Larson anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was a little shocking, but shouts to him, I guess. 4-1 is, I don't think I could bet it at this point, because I think even if he gets the championship 4, what's that number? 2.5, 3-1.
I was just
maybe?
gonna say it's probably like even 1.5.
Yeah, so I'd rather just be patient on him. Larson 4, Hamlin 4.5, Byron 5. Those probably your chalky final 4. We'll see if that's how it finishes out. Beyond there, we have Blaney at 9, we have Elliott at 10, we have Truex at 12, we have Reddick at 14, and then we get into kind of longer shots with Keselowski, Logano, Gibbs, Busher. Anyone in there that you're sort of interested in if you're adding to your portfolio? Maybe you have a Larson at 5 or 6 or 7. Maybe you have Christopher Bell at 7 or 8. Maybe you have a smattering of other people, but is there anything else that you're like, you know what, that's compelling enough where if we get to the playoffs and they're in the final 4, not only would I not be surprised, but their price would be significantly shorter.
Yeah, I think the one that's standing out to me has got to be Martin Truex Jr. just because he's been fast at numerous types of tracks this year. He just doesn't have the results to show for it. And if he can find a win ahead of, the playoffs, which he's securely in the playoff picture just based off of points. Like he's been plenty good this year. He just had the dice not come up his numbers. So, I think Truex is somebody to consider. I have a hard time getting to many of these numbers, especially the guys at the top. How do you bet a guy on a championship future at 4-1 when you're going to go into the playoffs? They got basically a 3-race audition to make it to the next round. And even the guy at the top of the board, if he has 2 horrendous days to open up a round, they're on the bubble. So, betting 4-1 on a championship future is not something I really want to get involved with. The guys at the bottom near the double digits, I don't hate, just because if you do get into the final 4, their number, the longest it's going to be. I think the longest number we saw was Logano a couple of years ago when we bet him at like 4-1.
Yeah.
And he cashed the championship. So, I think you have to consider what the numbers are going to be in the playoffs as well for these guys.
Yeah. And you also have to consider, can they actually win at Phoenix? Can they beat Kyle Larson at Phoenix?
Can they beat freaking Christopher Bell at Phoenix?
Yeah, can they beat Bell at Phoenix? So, if you don't think they can win at Phoenix, it doesn't matter how good they can be. So, Ryan Blaney, I think, makes sense. Ross Chastain, if you can get there, makes sense.
I was just going to mention Chastain. If you like Chastain this week and say you've already added him to your card, you got him at 9-1 or 10-1 when the market first opened, why don't you and if you don't have championship exposure, add this 25-1 number, because if he returns to Nashville glory like he had last year, he's in the playoffs, and we all saw how good he can be at Phoenix last year at the end of the year. So then you're sitting on a nice number that I'll probably never get to for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think he makes sense. I don't hate Elliott at 10. I think he's we've seen how good he can be. He's technically the points leader right now. So, although, did that change with Bell's win on Sunday?
Maybe. I think there's like a tie or something at the top again. I think it's Larson and Elliott are tied.
But anyway, so yeah, I think there's some potential interesting. I don't hate Truex. It's hard with the retirement inbound and the weird stuff going on with the team and kind of forcing him to make his decision so they can make.
At what point is Martin Truex Jr. mentally already in the cabin or on the lake fishing?
Yeah. So, all right, Brian Twining, this was fun. It was good to get this finally done. I appreciate everybody who was patient with us, scheduling wise. We'll figure out what's the plan for Saturday. Brian is doing his Scott Fishbowl draft on Saturday, with fantasy football season rapidly approaching. It's
In
very
Vegas,
exciting
baby.
time. Live from Las Vegas. So he'll be in Vegas to make some smattering of bets. I will be around as well. So we'll try and get all of the content out to you on Sunday, and we'll figure out what that's going to look like. Make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter so you get extra picks there. And we'll recap practice and qualifying and figure out where the books have moved and where the value may or may not be at that point of the week. So for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the week. Thanks again to getting us to 1,000 subs. Let's keep grinding. If you have not considered subscribing and you've made it this far, please hit the subscription button. It costs you nothing, helps us out a ton. We'll talk to you next time.